web dev is makes sense, right? What are the benefits of, if you want to move more in this field, you want to learn more about it, then we'll go over the components, different domains which are there in web dev, and of course career paths if you want to take it as a career. uh, but right now I think you just want to learn it just because you are interested in it. And then also we'll have a sort of a roadmap. Say you want to, right now you are in HTML CSS and want to move towards the other domain, right? How you can go, and future of web dev and general software, right? And finally Q&A. Of course, this is more of an interactive session. You are the only one, so any point, I mean, you have any questions, please ask me, right? Okay. So a little bit about myself: a web developer, software engineer, entrepreneur, right? About a decade of experience, worked in front end, back end, and deployment as well. And this Learn 21 born out of more passion for teaching and learning new things, new technologies. I still believe a lot of people don't have correct understanding of the technology. New things keep coming up, so I started this, and yeah, now we are moving. So roughly around 20-25 students we have trained. So we do live courses. Of course, we have a YouTube channel where you can look at our courses in a recorded sense, and then there are live courses as well, where we interact with the student, what problems they are having, and then we have exercises, right? Those videos also we have on the YouTube channel. You can check them out if you are interested. Okay, this first thing first, right? Why web developer as a career more, and of course as a interest also, right? So a little bit about the field. uh, Very lucrative, and a huge demand is there of developers, right? You must have also seen uh, developers earning a lot, right? That's because demand is huge and still very few people know how to do it well. Demand increases once you have more years of experience. When you are a beginner, then there is not too much demand, right? Because there are a lot of people. But once you have 5-10 years of experience, there's very high demand, at least in our country, which is India. There's a lot of demand, and you must also have seen in your area as well, right? Very easy to get started, very simple sort of terms, anybody can get started, right? Which is a good thing, bad thing also, because if everyone can get started, then the field might have lot many people, and that can bring down the salaries, etc., right? Impactful work. um, these days everyone is using web, everyone is using software, right? So you can interact with lot many people, or whatever you have created. Say somebody created a small app, maybe you have heard about this Wordle. Just recently somebody created, and that was bought by New York Times, and been that game sort of is being uh, played by millions of people, right? So a very small thing, right? But you can reach so many people. So this is the power of internet, and also of web. Good condition and a gateway into the software world. Of course, software world is much bigger than web. Web is just a, you can say, a subset of the software world, right? So web development, because it's so easy, you can get started into it, and then move out to different fields as well. Definition, this is very straightforward, right? Creating some application, uh, uh, designing, maintenance, right? Everything, from the life cycle of an application. Right, earlier when the web started, it was more of a static page at university or some business website where there's just some information there, right? But slowly they have moved to many complex applications like web applications, electronic businesses, right? Electronic payment transactions, social network services, etc. And every day we are using a lot of web services. Okay, now how web application work, just a bird eye view, right? From a high level, we can understand what are the main components, right? So it mostly works on the client server architecture. So there are clients, and then there is internet, and then there is a server, right? So what is the job of the client? Client requests from some data, and server responds with that data, right? So client can be anything. A computer, technically not a computer. Basically, when you are connected to the internet, your browser is the client, right? And the server is the Google server or whatever application you are connected to. So a browser running on your laptop or on your mobile or on your desktop is the client, and the server is the whatever your site you are trying to connect to. So you want to connect to google.com, then the server is google.com server. So this is a very high level picture, but very important, that request response model, mostly this is what the web is based on. Okay, then there are terms which are related to the web development, right? Front end, back end, full stack. What these terms mean, right? Front end is the user interface, right? User is sort of interacting with your application through some interface, through some UI, right? So people who work on these UI, those are called the front end developers. And then there is a backend also, which is attached to the front end, right? For example, here in the Wikipedia page, this is the whatever you are seeing is designed by a front end designer, engineer, whatever developer you can say, but there is a backend attached to it as well, right? Can you tell like what is the job of the backend here and what is the job of the front end?
Well, front end is the HTML
Hmm.
and the visual of the site, how it works, and backend are the other, I don't know, programs for data maybe,
Yeah, so like in this,
languages.
hmm. So front end is so what happens is when I open wikipedia.com in my browser, which is Chrome or Firefox, whatever, right? I get a page. So that page itself, that HTML is the front end, right? Somebody has coded it, but that front end has to talk to a server. Here, what example we saw. So once you request some information, this page opens in your browser. So this is a static page. Now it has to talk to a server for some information. Say if you type here anything, right? If you type Google here in Wikipedia, then there is some data again being fetched. So where is that data stored, and what is the logic on which it is being fetched? That all is governed by the backend, right? So what you are saying, HTML, CSS, these are just static pages, right? But there has to be a server attached to it, uh, which has all the logic, which has all the data, which has all the security optimizations, right? That is the job of the backend. When you just create a simple HTML page in your computer, that there's no backend attached to it, right? But when you will create, which we will talk about also, some different frameworks you will use, then your computer itself becomes the front end and back end also. Okay. Database, of course, you understand where the data is being stored. So when I type here Google, some information I'm getting, right? That information is stored somewhere, that's stored in the database. DevOps is the more on the admin part and the hosting part and infra part. So how the servers are maintained, what is the security of the servers, right? This you can also say web admin kind of work, that is also important. So these are the sort of the four branches of web development. Once you move forward into it, you will find. So people, what they start as a full stack, right, trying to get experience in all of these, and then slowly choosing one of the branches which they like, right? Somebody wants to just work on the user interface because it's what's interact with the user. Somebody wants to work on the back end, more on the logic and optimization side. Somebody wants to work on the database, and then DevOps also. Okay. But my sort of advice for any beginner is to work on all these, right? Create a small project working on the front end, back end, database, DevOps, then choose what you really want to do. So these are front end technologies which I think you have tried: HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and goal here is to create a fantastic user interface, right? User interface is something which interacts with your user, right? For the user does not care what technologies you are using in the backend, they only care about the UI. So it's very important that user interface is very uh, very optimized, and these are the technologies. Of course there are frameworks also now. Can you tell which are these frameworks? I should have put names here, but not here. From the symbol, can you guess which frameworks are these?
Sorry, can you say it again,
This
please?
these frameworks. So these symbols you say C, A, V, and some kind of these circles, ovals, right? These are symbols of certain frameworks. So in front end, these technologies you have, but over these technologies, people have created frameworks which give us lot of code out of the box, right? Lot of structure in our application. So I'm asking, do you recognize these symbols?
Not
Okay,
really.
no problem. So this is AngularJS, this is Vue.js, and this is React.js. Okay, so these are the frameworks, but of course, as a beginner, you start with these HTML, JS, and CSS, and then you move towards the framework. And slowly, what I'm seeing is everyone is using React. Okay, then in the backend, right? What we were talking about, the goal is to manage logic, data, security. So these are again in the backend also you use certain frameworks, right? So you use Django, which is very popular framework based in Python, right? Node.js, which is another framework made on JavaScript, then Ruby on Rails, then Laravel, and there are others as well. I've just mentioned these four. Of course, there are other frameworks as well. Okay, and then the database, right? There are different databases: MySQL, SQLite, Postgres, MongoDB. Again, talking from the sort of the different domains. So each domain has a lot of different components, right? And finally, the DevOps tools. So Nginx is there, Git, and Unicorn, Amazon Web Services, right? So it's a big sort of field. Uh, from the surface looks very straightforward, but once you delve into it, you will find different other technologies which are being used in, and each technology in itself is a big sort of thing to understand. Okay, then I'll just talk about the most important skills if you want to move ahead in this field, just not as a hobby, as something more serious, right? And then these skills are very important. One is the curiosity and interest in technology. So you should have genuine curiosity and interest, right? How this website is working. Every day we are interacting with so many applications, right? We use Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever. So you have to ask, you have to raise this question: how things are happening, what is the server. You have to read yourself, because these things again are not being taught too much in the university. Still people are figuring them out on their own, and of course these keep on changing. So you need to have very genuine interest in technology. Also, second is perseverance and patience. These skills which we were talked about, right, or these technologies each take a lot of time to learn, right? And if you give up easily, then you will not be able to move forward. And general coding, you have must have experience that you uh, do something, then there is an error, then you have to debug the error and then move forward, then there's another error. So a lot of perseverance, a lot of patience this will require. Ability to learn new things, right? As we said, and technology keeps on changing, new frameworks coming, new languages coming. So you always have to be upfront and be more proactive about learning. You cannot just say, okay, I learned HTML, CSS, JavaScript, that's it, I will not learn Angular JS or React. The world is changing very fast in the technology domain, so you have to keep up, right? And the fourth skill which I think is important is a good system design sense, right? At the end you are designing a system, and that system, one, has to perform very fast, so that is more on the response time. Second, has to be accurate, of course, right? It cannot be um, give wrong results. And then third is how much forethought you can put into it, so that going forward you don't have to change much, right? Those design sense you develop over time, because there are a lot of coders, as I said, but the demand is of the programmers or coders who have good design sense, who can design system which can scale and which does not have too many bugs, which can serve cases which are still in future, right? After 1 year you will face that, but still when they are designing, they're designing in a manner that thing is also taken care of. Okay. Career paths, I think you start as a developer. Then, as I said, web development is a pathway towards software engineering. Um, right, then you can move to software engineering, then senior software engineer, and then other levels, and finally it will end at CTO. And it will not take too much of a journey since these are fields are very new. What I'm seeing in smaller companies, people reaching the level of CTO in 8 to 10 years, right? And in bigger companies maybe in 15 years, and they are paid very well. So a great path for somebody who is very much interested in technology, very much interested in keeping themselves up for new things, right? And optimization and that engineering principles, which people really appreciate. For them, it's a great field. So finally, this is sort of a roadmap how you can get started, and I think you already have started, and maybe how you can then build on this, right? So first important is learning the theory, right? You have to first understand how things are happening, uh, what each component does, right? So a web site or web application is made up of hundreds of components, which we saw here. There's a front end, there's a back end, there's a database, and these DevOps tools. So you have to understand how each of those components are working, right? That's the theory part. And then you have to create a sample application, right? This is also very important. Just theory will not work. So I would say 20/80 or 30/70. 30% of time you have to understand HTML. Okay, what is a tag, what is a form, what does method equal to post mean, those things. And then also create a simple application based on that. Then that will give you good understanding, right? And start with the front end. I think you have started well, but then you have to move to a back-end framework, right? So I think these two parts you have covered, web basics and front end. Then you have to move to a back-end framework like Django, Node, Ruby on Rails, whatever framework you like, right? Simpler ones are Django, Ruby on Rails, both are very simple. Node also is very simple. If you know JS, then there's a benefit that Node.js is also based on JS, so you don't need to learn a new language. If you go for Django or Ruby on Rails, you will need to learn a new language. And then DevOps, as I said, you create a small application. So in our courses, which we were talking about, the live courses, we create a sample, we make the students create a sample application like a online resume builder, right? So there's a application where you can go and create a resume, and anybody can then create their resume there, right? So that kind of application we make the students make it, and then they have to upload also on a URL, right? So that will give the full stack view, which we were talking about: the front end, the back end, DevOps, and the database. Then you have to go for an internship or a job, because in the classroom or in the boot camp, whatever you call it, the learning, there is a limit to it, right? We are working on some dummy projects and smaller projects, but only when you will work on a real world sort of problem, real world project, will you get the real learning. Because then everyone, the stakes are very high, right? You cannot make mistakes. The scale is also very high. If you are creating your own resume builder, nobody is using it, but once people start using it and there's a company attached to it, everything becomes very serious. And that from seriousness, then more learning comes. And of course, final step is to get a real job, real setting with other people, right? And then your journey can start, right? And we help, of course. In India we have some contacts with different companies, so we help our students get the internship also. For international people, not very sure, But yeah, I mean, you can find those internships and well, but the main point is it's very important to work in a real job. So final slide, I mean, future of web dev, where we are heading. I think as we talked about, there's a lot of job growth, right? Machine learning is becoming very important, right? All the different apps are using machine learning because data is there's a huge amount of data being collected by everyone, all the applications, Facebook, YouTube, etc. So machine learning is nothing but just using that data to make your application better, right? So this will of course be associated with web development, is already associated. In future we'll see much more sort of intermingling. New technologies will keep on coming. Cyber security is becoming very important. Every day we read news that this site is hacked, this business is hacked, right? Even in the government, we hear this government hacked, computers got hacked, some information is being stolen. So as the web grows, these domains become very important. And of course, if you as a developer start with very simple and try to make a some stability, then you can move towards these fields as well. As I said, web dev is a window for, it's a starting point for you to enter the software world, and software world has a lot of different opportunities depending on your interest. Cloud simplification is also another important theme, right? Cloud, we host our websites etc in cloud, still is very uh, cumbersome process, right? How that will be simplified. And of course user experience wise also still our websites are very poor, right? Not many people, only tech savvy can use, the older people cannot use, right? Somebody who is not very tech savvy cannot use, right? Lot of features are there in the application which no people, not many people know of, right? So still user experience is very poor. So on that front also, if you are more on the design bit or those of creative kind of individual, then also web dev has a lot of opportunities for you, right? So yeah, I think this is it. Any questions you can please ask. And these are small, like these are our sort of social media, YouTube channel, website, Telegram, Twitter, etc. LinkedIn, you are already there, and you can contact us, right? Want to know more about it? You can of course look at our channel. We keep on putting, we put a lot of free content there. You can learn from that. Yeah.